Today we are making eggplant parmesan. Here are the ingredients that we're using today. 1 eggplant, 2 eggs. For the spices, we're using black pepper, salt, oregano, and thyme, olive oil and breadcrumbs, Parmesan cheese and mozzarella, milk, and marinara sauce. Let's get started. You'll first preheat your oven to 400 degrees and then place a layer of parchment paper on a baking sheet. You'll then wash and slice your eggplant into approximately 1/4 inch sections. Then you'll mix eggs and milk in one container. Here I used both eggs and 1 cup of milk, which is what the recipe recommended. But if I had to do over, I probably would only use half because I am only using 1 eggplant. So you'll mix that until everything's well incorporated. You'll then mix breadcrumbs, Parmesan cheese, and your spices in another bowl. The original recipe calls for panko crumbs, but Italian breadcrumbs is what I had on hand. So I am using some of each of the spices: black pepper, salt, thyme, and oregano. But I'm only putting in a couple shakes because the breadcrumbs are already seasoned. I'll put a link to the recipe that I followed so that you can see what the original recipe called for. But this recipe is nice. It does leave some leeway so you can make things to your taste. You'll then mix everything together. I'm crushing up some of those larger chunks of Parmesan cheese. There, everything's all mixed in. You can see the seasoning. You can already tell this is going to taste good. Now we're going to bread the eggplant slices. You'll start by dipping a piece of eggplant first into the egg wash and then into the breadcrumbs. And then you'll lay each piece of eggplant on the baking sheet. And then just repeat until all of the pieces are breaded. For this recipe today, I'm using 1 large eggplant. The original recipe calls for 2, but from past experience, I know that 1 eggplant will fit perfectly in my baking dish. So here is 1 whole tray. And I'm using my olive oil from my Israel cart order. And you'll just drizzle a little bit on top. This is because we're not deep frying. We're going to cook this in the oven, but you do need some oil to make it nice and crispy. You'll then bake for 18 minutes, which is what the recipe recommends. It also depends on how thick you cut your eggplant and how big the eggplant is. For this recipe today, I ended up flipping the slices at 18 minutes. And you can see the color is beautiful on the other side. So I wanted to cook for another 5 minutes to get both sides nice and crispy. So I just popped that back in for another 5 minutes just to crisp up nicely on both sides. And that just looks beautiful. Gorgeous coloration. Now I like to eat my eggplant parmesan with pasta, so we're going to get some water boiling. According to Google, the recommended ratio is 1 tablespoon salt per 1 cup of water, which I tried for today, but honestly, for me, it was way too salty. I usually just put in a little sprinkle of salt in, but same thing. You can make your pasta how it tastes good for you. And this is the second tray of eggplant, and time to assemble. We'll start by spreading 1/2 cup of the marinara sauce on the bottom of the pan. And then you'll add everything else in layers. So you'll put in the eggplant, and then you'll put on top of that marinara sauce and cheese, and then you'll layer again with the eggplant, marinara sauce, and cheese. For the amount of ingredients that I have today, it actually worked out almost perfectly to precisely 2 layers. And it worked out so perfectly because I actually ate one of the pieces because I couldn't wait. It was so delicious. The eggplant was nice and crispy. And the recipe actually calls for mozzarella balls, which I've never found in the grocery store, probably because I haven't looked for it. I usually stick with the basic ingredients, and every once in a while I'll go out and try something new. So if you have access to fresh mozzarella, go for it. I'm sure it's going to taste incredible. So here's that second layer, eggplant, and then marinara sauce. And then for that last layer, after we put on the mozzarella, we're going to add some Parmesan cheese also, and then a little sprinkling of salt, and then a little bit of olive oil. And my camera actually did not record that section, so here I'm just showing the ingredients that I used, and you can see them already in the pan. And then you'll bake your dish at 400 degrees uncovered for 20 minutes. And that Israeli olive oil really does give such an amazing flavor. Now we'll go ahead and add the pasta. I got this beautiful Italian pasta, and I'm using about half of what was in the bag, so about half a pound. And the bag says to boil for 9 to 11 minutes, but you can cook until it tastes good for you. And then once those 20 minutes are done for the eggplant parmesan, you'll broil for another 5 to 10 minutes. Now my oven doesn't have the broil feature, so I just bumped it up to 500. And once the pasta is a consistency that tastes good for you, you can go ahead and drain it. Look at that beautiful bubbling eggplant parmesan. Nice crispy edges. Hot out of the oven. The cheese is perfectly toasted. Now we're plating up the pasta. You can see it's still steaming. And then the eggplant parmesan on top. You can see all that steam still coming up. And I'm serving my eggplant parm today with some homemade pineapple kombucha. This drink is full of healthy probiotics and digestible vitamins and minerals. It's such an amazing drink. And I use fresh pineapple for mine. Time for a taste test. As I was gathering up this forkful, you can see the steam still coming up, and I needed to give it just a minute because I didn't want to burn my mouth. Okay, now we're ready. I just love eggplant parmesan. It's so delicious, and this is the best recipe that I've found that tastes almost just as good, if not better, than what you can get at a restaurant. Thank you so much for watching, and B'teavon.